Hello, welcome to our Open Ocean episode.
Episodes.
What?
Listeners, we interviewed Miss Jenny from NOAA, and we had such a lovely long conversation with her that we couldn't fit it all into just one episode.
Oh yeah, I remember. Since Miss Jenny is from NOAA, Isha and I decided to dedicate this episode to what NOAA is all about and what Miss Jenny does for NOAA.
Could you tell us our listeners some details about your job?
Sure. So my name is Jenny Stock, and I work for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Our short name is NOAA. And I work for the Greater Farallones and Cordell Bank National Marine Sanctuaries, two marine protected areas off our coastline between San Mateo and San Francisco, Marin, and Sonoma County. And my title is Education Specialist and Media Liaison.
Could you tell us more about the sanctuaries you work at?
Yes. So right along the California coast, have some of the most productive, abundant ocean waters around the world. This is because we have this incredible system called upwelling. Upwelling actually comes from the seafloor and comes up to the surface waters. And when it does come up, it brings with it lots of nutrients. And those nutrients help to fertilize the base of the ocean food web, and that would be phytoplankton. And the phytoplankton are kind of like the garden. When we start our gardens in the spring and the summer, we put in lots of compost to give them lots of nutrients to grow and use the sun's energy to grow. And the same thing in the ocean. Those nutrients from the seafloor help to fertilize the surface waters for phytoplankton. And the phytoplankton are the microscopic little unicellular, typically, organisms. And they are the base of the food web that are eaten by smaller animal plankton and fish and so on up the whole food web. So with all this incredibly productive ocean water, a lot of people care about what we have in our water. We have some incredible habitats. We have tide pools, which you may have explored at Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. We have kelp forests. Actually, we're really working to help our kelp forests. They need a lot of help right now. With all the food in the water from all that plankton, we have a lot of breeding animals like seabirds. And so they have their colonies. Some of them have their colonies nearby because there's so much food in the water. They can just hop in the water and get food for their chicks and come on back. We have a lot of fisheries, different types of fish, and they really benefit from all that really nutrient-rich water. And we have waters that are so attractive for animals from afar that they will swim thousands of miles to come here to eat because the food is so good. And with that big food web, we also have some of the top predators of the ocean. We have orcas that come through here, and we have white sharks. Yes, at the Farallon Islands. Some of them come a little close to shore, but this whole region supports a healthy white shark population because of that really healthy food web. And they need that food in order to live. So it's an incredibly productive place. People care about it so much. When the National Marine Sanctuaries were created, our communities along the coast said, we really want to protect these waters. They're valuable to us. They're valuable to us for food. They're valuable to us for recreation. They're valuable for wildlife abundance and diversity. And we enjoy having a healthy ocean. So these National Marine Sanctuaries are created to help protect these ecosystems, but also to allow some uses to happen in the most compatible way for helping to protect the areas. So we have these National Marine Sanctuaries. We have 4 in California. We have Channel Islands National Marine Sanctuary in the south. Then we have Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary, and that one comes actually all the way up to Marin County. And Greater Farallones National Marine Sanctuary is offshore of that and comes all the way around the Farallon Islands. And then Cordell Bank National Marine Sanctuary is totally offshore and just north of the Farallon region. So we have a lot of special water here in California. And
actually, I was researching a little bit because we're going to Ano Nuevo tomorrow. And I was reading about elephant seals, and apparently they also like to breed around Channel Islands too. So I thought that's really cool when you mentioned that. So do you guys look around to see the elephant seals breeding too?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. They're some of my favorites. And so elephant seals are an amazing success story, I think, to share because, and you'll hear about this when you go to Ano Nuevo, because way before we had modern energy systems, we hunted animals in the ocean for oil. So that meant every animal was killed to make oil for making light and energy that we used for cooking. And that obviously proved to be a very bad thing. We lost so many animals and the populations went way down. Thankfully, some humans got smart and said, that's not a good idea. And they decided to protect these animals, which is awesome. But we thought we lost elephant seals altogether. But turns out some of them were hanging out on Guadalupe Island, which is an island off the coast of Mexico. And they realized, oh my gosh, this population is still intact. And they, through protection, have really come back in their numbers. And we get to enjoy seeing them now in many different places. So you're going to see Ano Nuevo, which is cool. I just saw some at Drake's Beach in his national seashore because they've started coming back for their winter activities, which is really exciting.
Can you please tell our listeners what NOAA does?
Sure. So NOAA stands for National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and we're a federal government agency dedicated to science of the ocean and atmosphere. So throughout NOAA, there are several different agencies and offices, all that focus on the atmospheric sciences and understanding our atmosphere and climate change and the gases in our atmosphere and studying that, as well as the ocean. And we use a lot of different types of science instruments to learn all about these really important parts of our Earth. Some parts of our science and data go towards saving lives, such as tsunami warning systems. So when we have these instruments in the ocean, they can detect earthquakes from far away and give warning of the energy that moves through the earth and through the ocean from a tsunami. And by having early warnings, people can evacuate really quickly. So that's one way NOAA is involved with that. We also have a very strong science with weather and studying weather systems and studying air masses and helping to predict what weather we might have. And that's also really important in saving lives and looking at tornadoes or big storms coming. We get much more warning now than ever before about big events that weather can affect. Like just this week, we've been experiencing another high swell event, meaning really big waves in the ocean, which is really dangerous for anybody on the coast. So staying off the beaches on those days is really important because people can easily get swept up by those big waves. So NOAA is really important for those day-to-day safety advisories, but also for looking at long-term. And NOAA is very involved with understanding climate change and all the intricacies about that around the planet, and sharing that information with many others so that we can respond and make changes to our lifestyles.
So what type of instruments does NOAA use or work with for weather or like detecting ocean upswelling?
Those are great questions. So one of the instruments that we use are buoys, and buoys that have oceanographic instruments on them, meaning they can be placed in the ocean and collect information through those instruments that we can then get either by taking the instrument off and downloading it, or by sending the information up to a satellite. Satellite is also another tool. So some of the instruments that we have are things that can measure pressure and how pressure changes, or temperature, or salinity, or something called primary production, which is phytoplankton we were talking about, which is an indication about the food web and the productivity. When we see a lot of productivity, a lot of phytoplankton, we know, oh, there's upwelling happening here. So those are just a couple of the instruments that we use for physical data. For the ocean and looking at marine life and habitats, we use some different instruments too, which you may have heard about through Nautilus. Remotely operated vehicles help us to see underwater by putting these robots underwater with a cable that can transmit the data back to the ship to show us what's going on, so that we don't have to put humans down there, but the cameras can tell us what's going on. Also, we will use different tools to sample the seabed. You probably have seen this on Nautilus a lot, right? Where we have these cores that can go into the seafloor and take a sample of the sediment, which is really important information. We actually just published a study about how important sediment is for carbon sequestration and storing carbon for the long term. And it's because we're being able to analyze and study seafloor sediments. And when I say we, I mean the collective group of scientists around the world, not us, we just at NOAA, but everybody, all the scientists working together. Also can take samples of species. That's how we learn what they are, either corals or sponges. We can take samples and with those ROVs.
I just wanted to confirm real quick. So are the sanctuaries you work at, are they accessible to the public?
Yes, so they are open to everybody. And the hard part is that it's hard to get to. Our national marine sanctuaries here along the coast come all the way up to the mean high tide line, which means if you're going out to the beach, you're very likely, if you're just below the surf line, right inside the National Marine Sanctuary. So yes, you can visit. A lot of people can't though, because the ocean is hard to get to for people far away. So they're open to everybody. And it's a little bit harder to get out onto the ocean because you have to have a boat or to get on a commercial boat or a charter that you can pay money to go on or know somebody with a boat. But they're open to everybody. And some places are a little bit more accessible than others, meaning safe access, like for scuba diving or bird watching. That's one of my favorite activities is bird watching and going tide pooling because it's on the coast, it's in the sanctuary. You can see lots of life and observe changes all the time and notice what's around. And that means I don't have to get on a boat. So it's just getting to the coast.
I remember I love tide pooling because I always try to look for octopuses. So then when I go out there and I find an octopus, I'm like, yes, I achieved something.
Wow, that's cool. I haven't seen too many octopuses tide pooling. So you must have really good observation skills.
Yeah, I mean, it's mostly in Fitzgerald I go tide pooling. Yeah, it's really cool there.
You mentioned that kelp forests need our help. Can you talk a bit more? And also, are you working with the Monterey Bay Aquarium too?
Good. Okay, 2 questions. Yes, and sort of. So kelp forests are a really, have you seen a kelp forest before? Have you gone to an exhibit and seen them or seen them? Yeah. So in Southern California and all the way up through Monterey Bay and to about our region, we have giant brown kelp. And it's weird that it's called brown kelp because it's really green for the most part, but it's called giant brown kelp, and a scientific name is called Macrocystis. And it's beautiful and is so important for so many animals, for fishes and invertebrates, and provides camouflage and hiding places for otters and leopard sharks and so many different animals. We've also really relied on kelp for cultural uses. A lot of indigenous communities really have a special place for kelp in their practices and their diet. So kelp has a lot of indigenous uses as well. And I'd say recreationally has a huge value. People go to snorkel and enjoy what lives in a kelp forest. North of San Francisco, San Francisco is kind of like an area where we have some giant brown kelp, but we also have another species of kelp called bull kelp. And bull kelp has that really big air bladder, and you may have seen it on the beach. It's like, oh, this big ball, and then it has like blades that come off of it, and this long kind of looks like a rope, but it's called a stipe. So the bull kelp is really, really cool, and that's the predominant kelp that we have, like Bay Area north. But this is an algae. It's a very fast-growing algae with the right conditions of cold water and nutrients. So this upwelling that we have is really good for bull kelp. So what's happened in the last few years, we've had some really big ocean shifts. And about 10 years ago, it's been a series of events. We had a loss of sea stars along the entire west coast.
The sea star wasting disease.
Yeah, so you know about that. So sea stars are a predator. They're really important not only in the intertidal area, but to the deep sea and in between. And since historically our early settlers and colonists hunted out otters were the predominant predator for urchins and abalone, but when you got rid of that top predator, it left sea stars as the next level predator, specifically the sunflower star. They're an awesome star with lots and lots and lots of rays, and if you ever see one, you have to tell the people at Fitzgerald, because we've lost so many with sea star wasting, we hardly ever see them anymore, and they're really important. So when we lost that predator, all of a sudden the urchins were like, we can just reproduce. No one's going to eat us. And they reproduced and they reproduced and they thrive in variable conditions. And so the urchin population just took off, and urchins like to eat kelp. And so they eat the kelp and they eat the kelp, and the kelp just basically got taken away and drifted away by these urchins. And it's made it really hard for bull kelp to come back, because of the urchins there are just like waiting on the seabed. They're incredibly resilient animals, and they are native to California. So they're in their natural habitat. They're doing what they should do, but this is what happens when you take away predators. The conditions change. So kelp is in bad shape up here in our area. I actually am not too familiar with the status of kelp in Southern California right now, but up here we've lost about 95% of our bull kelp because of these conditions. So one of the things that we're doing with the National Marine Sanctuary is learning with a lot of scientists and collaborators, what can we do to restore it? Can we restore it? And so practicing, doing all the science that we can possibly do to learn about how can we get kelp back and how can we reduce these urchins.
Listeners, this concludes our first episode of our Open Ocean Trilogy.
Stay tuned to hear about what an open ocean actually is in our next episode.
Bye!